Samantala, tunghayan naman natin ang pagdinig ng Senado sa franchise renewal ng ABS-CBN.
They fall under general default in all of its loan obligations. Pag nag-expire franchise, hindi na nila matutugunan ang kanilang mga commitments, mga utang, mga kailangang bayaran. But I think for a public service standpoint, unless the NTC tells us to stop operation the day after the expiry of the franchise, the public service would have to continue because that would be in the best interest actually of public service. Next, please. Ito naman yung sa Innovate. Innovate, are you using a provisional franchise permit now for Islacom? And then the chairperson said, Mr. Castelo said, technically, yes, ma'am. This representation said, were you giving them provisional authority? And Mr. Cordova answers, I think, ma'am, there was an opinion given by the House of Representatives that as long as it was filed before the expiration, then they can continue within the present Congress. Next, please. And, the acting chairman, Senator Osmeña. So you're using the date of application rather than the approval of the extension for the application as the basis for saying that it would be perfectly legal for Congress to renew. Acting Chairman Senator Osmeña again said, basta sinabi ng NTC, okay. Mr. Cordova answers, just an additional matter, Your Honor. In our case, for example, cable company is about to expire in a few months. What they do is they file it before us, before the date of expiration. But since it takes some time, and then Acting Chairman Senator Osmeña said, sinasabi na sa inyo ito. And Mr. Cordova said, yes. So it takes some time for us to go through the whole process because of the pending items. Also, we have to consider it as filed on time. Next, please. Osmeña, all right. So there, you've taken care of the NTC already. Ewan ko anong ibig sabihin nun. Anyway, the chairperson, but can they have a provisional permit to air? Mr. Cabarrios, Your Honor, we were informed by the House that the renewal of the franchises the application is filed in Congress, Your Honor, and we are mindful of that. One, so the authority continues until Congress decides whether or not the renewal of the franchise. So if you have naman that pending application and Congress does not direct cancellation, then I guess by all means then, I am correct in interpreting this, they can still broadcast. This is from Senator Osmeña. And Mr. Cabarrios answers, yes, Your Honor. Next, please. Okay, so that's it. So these are precedents that were discussed extensively here in the Senate. I can see that Mr. Cordova in his statements was very, very careful, but then he also recognized that the franchises will lapse, and he did not explicitly stop its operation. So with that in mind, and with that presented, may I get the reaction of the DOJ and NTC? Sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am not here to divulge the opinion that we will send to the National Telecommunications Commission in a few days. But I am here appearing as a resource person in the hope that I may somehow contribute on the matter of how to deal with a peculiar situation of a franchise applicant whose franchise is about to expire, and bills have been filed for the renewal of its franchise, but quite unfortunately, Congress may not be able to act on it before the expiration date. So if the honorable senators will permit me to state certain relevant facts, I think that based on the records in our possession, the following facts are undisputed. Number one, in the case of ABS-CBN, its franchise covered by Republic Act number 7966, enacted on 30 March 1995, provides for a term of 25 years from the effectivity of the franchise. Section 15 of the franchise provides that it becomes effective 15 days from date of publication in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. Based on facts available to us, the franchise was published on April 19, 1995. For that reason, the franchise will expire on May 4, 2020. Another fact, various bills have been filed in Congress for the renewal of ABS-CBN's franchise. Next, there are indications that Congress will not be able to act on the said pending bills before the expiration of the franchise on May 4, 2020. There is nothing in Republic Act number 7966, that's the franchise of ABS-CBN, in the radio control law, in the public service law, or in any other law that provides for a situation where a franchise expires during the pendency of its application for renewal with the Congress. And therefore, the issue before us is whether or not ABS-CBN or any entity similarly situated may continue to operate after the expiration of its franchise and during the pendency of various bills for its renewal in the Congress. What is the DOJ position on this matter? Number one, there is a gap in the law that could have declared the status of operations of a radio and television franchisee when the Congress has not finally acted on a bill for the renewal of its franchise. Number two, when there is a gap in the law, equity comes in to fill the gap. Equity is the principle by which substantial justice may be attained in cases where the prescribed or customary forms of ordinary law are inadequate. And that is a citation from Enrile versus Sandigan Bayan, citing Reyes versus Lim, a 2003 case. Considerations of equity have apparently been applied in previous similar situations presented earlier, namely, among others, PTNT, Smart Communications Incorporated, Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines Incorporated, all of whom were allowed to operate despite expired franchises as long as the application for the renewal of these franchises were lodged with the Congress before the lapse of their term. Number four, the grant of a franchise is an exercise of sovereign power, and under our Constitution, that power is vested in the Congress. By necessary implication, such power of Congress also includes the power to prescribe the rights of a franchisee applicant pending final determination of the renewal of its franchise by the Congress. It is therefore respectfully submitted that the Congress, by a concurrent resolution, may authorize the National Telecommunications Commission to issue a provisional authority subject to such terms and conditions as the NTC may deem fit, to ABS-CBN and other entities who are similarly situated, authorizing them to continue operating, subject to the Congress's eventual disposition of the renewal applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Guevara, for clarifying that as well and for mentioning all of the precedents that we had in the past. Senator Drilon is recognized.
Just one question to the NTC. Assuming that you issue a temporary franchise for whatever reason, can that be withdrawn at any time?
Your Honors, we would have to check that first, but that would be subject to the terms and conditions that we would have to ask guidance from the Department of Justice.
No, just on I'm asking a question based on certain accepted facts. We fail to act on the franchise, whether on March 30 or on May 4. There is an opinion put forward that NTC may continue, ABS-CBN may continue on the basis of a temporary franchise, a provisional authority. Now, so two questions. Number one, can the NTC withdraw that authority at any time since the franchise has expired? Number two, would you feel more comfortable on the Secretary of Justice have a much firmer legal position if Congress, in fact, adopts a joint resolution that would extend the franchise temporarily until the end of this Congress? So those two questions, Madam Chair, may we ask for a response?
Just one quick additional question.
Senator Pangilinan?
Thank you. And was there any instance in the past that a provisional authority was withdrawn? So,
Your Honors, as I've mentioned earlier by the Secretary of Justice, we would have to put in the conditions to be stated in the provisional authority that has to be issued by the National Telecommunications Commission. So, if there are violations of those conditions, then I guess, Your Honor, we have to we should be able to withdraw the provisional authority those issues.
Madam Chair, I hope that we can get a more direct answer from the NTC because it's very critical to our vote. Can the NTC withdraw the provisional authority granted while the matter is pending consideration by both houses? Number two, assuming that you could, would you support the proposition that Congress, through a joint resolution, extend the legislative franchise as an act of sovereignty, as pointed out by Secretary Guevara, so that at the very least, ABS-CBN can operate independently without a sword of Damocles of NTC threatening to withdraw the franchise at any time, or the temporary authority at any time? Can we get a direct answer from the NTC on this, Madam Chair?
Yeah. Your Honors, I think the NTC, considering that there is no more, considering that there is no more franchise that has, since it has already lapsed, then we can withdraw the provisional authority anytime, but subject to conditions.
Yeah, you can withdraw it at any time. That's what we're trying to highlight. You may have the authority to issue a temporary franchise while the franchise application is being processed in Congress, but you can withdraw it at any time. Therefore, would it be consistent with the principle of fresh freedom that this joint resolution, which would extend the franchise by at least 3 years, as we have proposed, in order that we can deliberate on this franchise and its alleged violation, and at the same time, the NTC can be authorized to issue a temporary authority, and that authority of the NTC is backed up by a legislative authority of Congress in exercise of our sovereign functions. Can we have an answer from Attorney Cordova, Madam Chair?
Your Honors, with regard to, I think the second question is if it's possible that the franchise can be extended by a joint resolution of both houses of Congress.
It can be.
No, that's a question, right, Your Honor?
I'm sorry?
That is your question.
But what we're driving at is that the authority should not be of an
Ang iba pa nating mga balita